I wasn't supposed to hear it. That was the strangest part. They didn't whisper. They didn't lower their voices. They spoke with the calm efficiency of people discussing travel plans. My funeral, my house, my money, and the timing. I don't think she'll make it to winter, my son said, checking his phone. Doctors never give exact dates, my daughter replied. But we should be ready. Ready, as if I were a storm. I stood in the hallway, one hand resting on the wall to steady myself. The other wrapped around a mug of tea that had already gone cold. They were sitting in my living room, on my couch, planning my absence. We need to be practical, my son-in-law added. The house should be sold quickly. Prices are good right now. And Mom's savings, my daughter said. We'll split that evenly. It's what she would want. Would I? No one asked. I felt something inside me shift. Not crack, not break, align. They spoke about logistics the way people do when they believe the hardest part is already over. Who would handle the paperwork? Who would talk to the lawyer? Who would check on me more often so it didn't look suspicious? Suspicious. That word finally made my teacup tremble. I stepped back silently, careful not to let the floorboard near the door creak. I had lived in this house long enough to know its secrets. I returned to my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, listening to my own heartbeat. Slow, steady, very much alive. That night, my daughter knocked gently on my door. Mom, are you awake? I waited a beat before answering. Yes, dear. She peeked in, smiling softly. We were just talking, she said, about the future. I smiled back. So was I replied. She didn't notice anything was wrong. That's the danger of underestimating someone. You stop watching them. I lay awake for hours, replaying every word. Not with anger, with clarity. They weren't cruel. They were finished with me. And people who are finished with you feel entitled to what's left behind. By morning, I had made a decision. Not revenge, freedom. I opened my laptop and searched for something I had once dismissed as unrealistic. Long-term cruise living. Pages loaded slowly, as if testing my resolve. Cabins with balconies, meals prepared, doctors on board, ports I had only ever seen in magazines. A floating city, a place where no one waited for you to disappear. I laughed softly. The sound surprised me. When my family gathered again that afternoon, I joined them in the living room. They looked startled. Mom, my son said, standing, you should be resting. I am, I said calmly. I've never felt more rested. They exchanged looks. I sat down. I've been thinking about the future, I continued. They leaned in. I let them, because sometimes the most powerful move is letting people believe the plan is still theirs. For now. I became very agreeable after that. That was my first disguise. When my daughter suggested a new doctor, I nodded. When my son insisted on managing my mail, I thanked him. When my son-in-law offered to handle some paperwork, I smiled and told him how helpful he was. They relaxed almost immediately. People who expect resistance grow careful. People who expect obedience grow careless. I let my daughter drive me to appointments. She spoke for me, answered questions I hadn't finished hearing. She gets tired easily, she would say. We don't want to overwhelm her. I watched the reflection of her face in the window. Focused, relieved, already living without me. At home, they left brochures on the table. Assisted living, care facilities, places that smelled like endings. I just want you comfortable, my daughter said once. I know, I replied. I didn't say where I planned to be comfortable. At night, when the house went quiet, I worked. I gathered documents, deeds, statements, insurance papers. I copied everything, not rushed, methodical. I listed the house with an agent 2 towns over, not through the family lawyer, not through anyone they knew. The agent asked why I wanted a quick sale. I'm moving, I said. Where, he asked. I smiled. Somewhere with an ocean. I sold my car. That confused them. You won't need that right now, my son said, nodding approvingly. He thought he knew what right now meant. I started giving away things that mattered. Books to the library, clothes to a shelter, jewelry to a woman who had once helped me after my husband died. Each gift felt lighter than the last. One afternoon, my daughter noticed a painting missing from the hallway. "Where did that go?" she asked. "I sold it," I said. She frowned. "Shouldn't we have discussed that?" "I discussed it with myself," I replied gently. She laughed, uneasy. They began talking more openly around me, assuming I didn't follow the details. "That should cover the taxes," my son said once. "And once the house sells, everything will be simpler," my daughter added. I stirred my tea slowly. "Yes," I said, "much simpler." The deposit from the buyer came in on a Tuesday. I watched the numbers settle in my account. They had waited years for this moment. They just didn't know it had arrived early. That night, I booked the cruise. Not a vacation, a residence. 6 months to start. Renewable. A small balcony. Medical staff. No expectations. When the confirmation email arrived, I didn't feel fear. I felt relief, because I had finally chosen a future where no one rehearsed my death. The buyer wanted a fast closing. That was the first tremor. "Cash offer," the agent said on the phone, keeping his voice low. "No contingencies. They've already wired the earnest money." "Good," I replied. "Let's not drag things out." He laughed. "You sound like someone who knows where she's going." I did, just not where anyone expected. My daughter noticed the sign first. She didn't say anything, just stared at it through the window, like it might disappear if she didn't acknowledge it. Later that evening, she asked casually, "Why is there a for sale sign outside?" "Oh," I said, "I thought you knew." Her smile froze. "Knew what?" "That I'm simplifying," I replied. They gathered in the living room that night. My son leaned against the fireplace. My daughter sat stiffly on the couch. My son-in-law hovered near the door, already calculating exits. "You can't sell the house without talking to us," my son said. "I did talk to someone," I replied. "A professional." "That's not what I meant," he snapped. I tilted my head. "Then what did you mean?" They exchanged looks. This was supposed to be their conversation, their timing. "We were planning," my daughter said carefully. "We just thought, given your health, it would be better to wait." "Wait for what?" I asked. No one answered. Silence has weight when it's guilty. I didn't push. I excused myself early, saying I was tired. They nodded, relieved. People are always relieved when you return to the role they assigned you. Upstairs, I packed. Not everything, just what mattered. A few clothes, photographs, the watch my husband wore every day of our marriage. I left the rest. Objects are heavy when they carry expectations. The inspection happened 2 days later. I wasn't home. I was at the bank, finalizing transfers. The clerk congratulated me. "Big change," she said. "Yes," I replied, "long overdue." When I returned, my daughter was pacing. "They're walking through your bedroom," she said. "Your things." "They're walking through a building," I replied. "Not my life." She stared at me, really stared. For the first time, I saw doubt. That night, I overheard my son whispering on the phone. "She's acting strange." No, not confused, decisive. "Yes, we need to slow this down." Slow it down. The irony almost made me smile. The next morning, I received an email from the cruise line. "Welcome aboard. Departure in 3 weeks." I printed it and folded it neatly into my purse. At breakfast, my son asked, "Do you have plans this month?" "Yes," I said. "With who?" my daughter asked. I looked at them both. With myself. They didn't laugh. They didn't argue. They watched me the way you watch someone you thought you knew step out of frame. Because when the ground starts moving, the people standing on it realize too late they never owned it. They moved quickly once panic replaced patience. That's always the tell. My son called the agent without telling me. I know because the agent called me 10 minutes later, his voice carefully neutral. Your family has concerns, he said. They asked whether you were feeling pressured. I smiled into the phone. No, I said. They're feeling surprised. That evening, my daughter brought out the paperwork she'd been quietly collecting. Medical records, old notes, a brochure for a care facility I had never toured. We're worried you're making decisions under stress, she said, sliding the folder toward me. We just want to protect you. Protect. The word they used when they meant pause. I appreciate your concern, I replied. The sale proceeds tomorrow. Her hand tightened on the folder. They tried reason next. You'll regret this, my son said. What if you need help? I'll have help, I answered, just not supervision. What if you get lonely? My daughter asked. I looked at her. I already know what loneliness feels like. When reason failed, they tried authority. My son-in-law mentioned lawyers. My daughter mentioned assessments. My son mentioned timing, how inconvenient this all was right now. I let them talk. People reveal more than they realize when they think they're persuading you. I excused myself and went to the study. Opened a drawer, pulled out a single page. I've appointed an independent advisor, I said when I returned. Effective immediately. Their faces changed. You can't just, my son began. I can, I replied. I did. That night, I overheard them in the kitchen. Lower voices, sharper edges. If she delays, we lose leverage, my son said. We should ask the doctor, my daughter replied. No, she's still legally competent, my son-in-law added. Competent. They said it like a loophole. The next morning, the buyer signed. Funds cleared. The house, my house, was officially sold. I felt no grief, just completion. I told them over breakfast. It's done, I said, spreading jam on toast. Closing is Friday. My daughter's eyes filled, not with tears, but calculation. Where will you go? She asked. I took a bite. I'll be traveling. Traveling where? My son pressed. I met his gaze. Forward. That afternoon, I received a small package, a welcome kit from the ship, a map, a schedule, a card with my cabin number written in careful ink. I slipped it into my purse. They followed me with their eyes for the rest of the day, as if watching could slow time, as if knowing could stop it. But the countdown had already begun, and for the first time, they weren't rehearsing my death. They were rehearsing my absence. They planned one last dinner. You could tell by how carefully they framed it. Just us, my daughter said, smiling too brightly. Before everything changes, my son added, as if change weren't already standing in the room. I agreed, not because I owed them anything, because I wanted to hear it said out loud. The table was set formally. Candles, wine glasses, food I used to cook when they wanted something from me. We ate quietly at first, too quietly. That kind of quiet always breaks. So, my son finally said, swirling his wine, what exactly is this traveling plan? I dabbed my mouth with a napkin. A cruise, I said, long term. My daughter laughed, sharp and disbelieving. A vacation? A residence, I corrected. The word landed heavier than I expected. That's ridiculous, my son said. You can't live on a ship. I can, I replied, and I will. My son-in-law leaned back. For how long? As long as I'm enjoying myself. Silence again. Then my daughter spoke. So you sold the house for that? For freedom, I said. She slammed her fork down. There it is, she snapped. You're doing this to punish us. I looked at her calmly. No, I said. I'm doing this because I heard you practicing my death. The candles flickered. My son went pale. What are you talking about? He asked. I heard you, I continued. In this room, talking about winter, about selling, about splitting what was left. No one interrupted, no one denied it. That was answer enough. You weren't supposed to hear that, my daughter whispered. There it was. Not we were wrong, just you weren't supposed to know. My son stood abruptly. You're twisting things, he said. We were being realistic. You were being finished with me, I replied. My son-in-law finally spoke. So this is it. You take everything and disappear? I smiled gently. I'm not taking anything, I said. I already gave it to you. Years of my life. You just wanted the rest early. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. This time, real ones. What about us? She asked. I looked at her. What about me? I asked back. No one had an answer. After dinner, I washed the dishes myself. I always liked ending things properly. They watched from the doorway, unsure whether to help, unsure of their roles now. That night, I packed the last suitcase. In the morning, I would leave the house for the final time, not as someone being moved, as someone departing. Because the truth, once spoken, doesn't need to argue, it just leaves. I left at dawn, not out of anger, out of clarity. The house was quiet in the way it used to be when my children were small and still believed mornings were gentle things. I stood in the hallway for a long moment. The wall where I had measured their heights. The corner where my husband used to leave his keys. The window that caught the afternoon light just right. I didn't rush. Rushing belongs to people who are afraid of changing their minds. I took one last walk through each room, not touching anything, just looking. Objects don't hold memories, people do, and I was taking mine with me. My suitcase waited by the door, small. Everything I needed fit inside it now. That felt like a victory. I left a note on the kitchen table. Not an explanation, not an apology, just a sentence. I heard you. I chose myself. I didn't sign it. They would know. At the airport, I felt strangely light. No one checking on me, no one hovering, no one deciding how long I should sit or stand. The ticket agent smiled. Enjoy your journey. I already was. When I boarded the ship later that afternoon, the air changed. Salt, wind, movement. The deck stretched wide and open, nothing boxed in by expectations. A crew member escorted me to my cabin. Balcony, chair, ocean. No one asked my age. No one asked my plans. They just handed me a key card and said, "Welcome home." My phone buzzed for the first time since I left. A message from my son. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. Another from my daughter. "We can talk about this." I turned the phone off. Not forever, just for now. That evening, as the ship pulled away from the dock, I stood on the balcony and watched the shoreline fade. I thought of them, standing in the kitchen, reading the note. I imagined the panic settling in. Not because they loved me, but because they had lost control of the ending. Dinner that night was served with quiet efficiency. A table by the window, soft music, no expectations. A man across from me raised his glass. "To new chapters," he said. I raised mine back. Later, I lay in bed and felt the gentle motion of the water beneath me. The kind that reminds you the world is bigger than any room you were once confined to. For the first time in months, I slept without listening for voices. Because when people rehearse your death, they don't imagine you walking away. They imagine you staying still. They imagine you waiting. I wasn't waiting anymore. Life on the ship didn't feel like escape. It felt like arrival. The days found their own rhythm quickly. Mornings began with light spilling across the water, soft and forgiving. I learned the sound of the ship the way you learn a new house, what the floors whispered, how the walls breathed at night. No one hurried me. No one told me when to rest. For the first time in years, my time belonged to me alone. At breakfast, I sat with strangers who didn't ask about my past. They asked where I'd been, what I liked to read, which ports made me feel curious. A woman named Helen shared stories about losing her husband. A man named Robert spoke about selling everything after retirement and choosing motion instead of stillness. No one looked at me like I was waiting to disappear. My phone stayed off for 3 days. When I finally turned it on, the messages flooded in. "Please call us. This isn't funny. We're worried." Worried. Only know when there was nothing left to manage. I didn't answer immediately. I went ashore instead. The first port smelled like citrus and warm stone. I walked slowly, deliberately, letting the unfamiliar streets rearrange something inside me. I bought a small notebook and wrote my name on the first page. Just my name, no titles, no roles. That evening, my daughter finally called. I let it ring once. Then I answered. "Mom," she said, breathless. "Where are you?" "I'm traveling," I replied. "You can't just disappear," she said. "We need to talk." "I'm listening," I said. "You're talking." She fell silent. "You scared us," she said finally. "I know," I replied. "You scared me first." She started to cry. This time, I didn't rush to soothe her. "You're being selfish," my son said later when he took the phone. "You left us to deal with everything." I looked out at the dark water beyond my balcony. "I dealt with being planned around," I said calmly. "Now it's your turn." The days passed. The messages slowed. They realized there was no return date to negotiate. On board, I was no longer the woman whose family abandoned her. I was the woman who liked late-night tea, the woman who walked the deck at sunrise, the woman who listened more than she spoke. And when she spoke, people leaned in. One afternoon, the ship's doctor introduced himself. "Just so you know," he said kindly, "we're here if you need anything." Not because I was failing, because care didn't have to come with conditions. That night, I sat at dinner laughing at a story that had nothing to do with grief or loss. The laughter surprised me. It felt unfamiliar, earned. I realized then that my family had rehearsed my death, because they couldn't imagine my life without them at the center of it. They never imagined a version where I was whole on my own. The ship sailed on. So did I. They tried urgency first. That's always the opening move. The message arrived just after sunrise. "We need you home. It's serious. Call us now." 3 lines. No details. I stared at the screen, feeling the old reflex stir, the one that jumped at tone instead of truth. I set the phone down, finished my tea, watched the horizon loosen into blue. An hour later, my son called. "This isn't a game," he said, skipping readings. "There are things you need to handle." "Like what?" I asked. "Like consequences," he replied. "People are asking questions about the house, about the money." I smiled softly. I answered those questions, I said, with my signature. They tried guilt next. My daughter left a voicemail, her voice carefully cracked. "We're family," she said. "You don't just walk away from family." I listened to it twice. Then once more. She never said, "We're sorry." She never said we were wrong. Only come back. On board, the days kept offering me small proofs of choice. A morning lecture I could attend or skip. A shore excursion I could join or ignore. A dinner table where no seat was assigned. Freedom doesn't announce itself. It accumulates. The call came that night, patched through from shore. A lawyer this time. Polite, neutral, efficient. "Your family would like to discuss a revised arrangement," he said. "They're open to compromise." "About what?" I asked. "A timeline," he replied. "Expectations. Perhaps a trust." I leaned against the railing, the sea breathing below me. "There is nothing to revise," I said. He paused. "You understand this could permanently affect relationships." "I understand," I replied. "It already has." The ship docked the next morning. A new city, new streets, new coffee. I walked alone for hours, letting unfamiliar corners remind me that the world had never been as small as my family made it. I bought a scarf the color of salt and sky. When I returned, my phone buzzed again, a message from my son. "If you don't come back now, don't expect us to be here later." There it was, the line. I read it carefully. Then I typed one sentence. I didn't leave to be chased. I left to live. I turned the phone off. That evening, the ship hosted a small gathering on deck. Music low, lights warm, faces open. A woman beside me asked, "How long are you traveling?" I thought for a moment. "Long enough," I said. She nodded, as if that made perfect sense. Later, alone in my cabin, I unpacked the scarf and folded it into the drawer. It fit. Everything fit now. I realized something important then. They had mistaken proximity for ownership, silence for consent, waiting for weakness. They never imagined that I would choose distance. not to punish them, but to protect myself. The ocean doesn't argue. It just keeps moving. And once you learn to move with it, no one can pull you back to shore. The message didn't come from my children. That was how I knew it mattered. It arrived late, after dinner, when the ship had settled into its night rhythm and the ocean sounded like a long, patient breath. Mrs. Hale, this is to confirm the final transfer has been completed. All proceeds have been received and allocated per your instructions. Attached was a simple document, stamped, dated, done. I read it twice. Not because I didn't understand, because finality deserves respect. For the first time since I left, nothing inside me felt unfinished. I didn't rush to call anyone. I didn't check messages. I didn't rehearse explanations in my head. I stepped out onto the balcony and let the night air settle on my skin. This was what they never planned for, completion without confrontation. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. There were fewer messages now, shorter, less confident. Please talk to us. We didn't mean it like that. We're worried about you. Worried had lost its power. I replied once, not with anger, not with distance, with truth. I'm safe. I'm well. I won't be coming back. If you want a relationship, it will be one without plans made around my absence. I didn't add anything else. No conditions. No deadlines. I pressed send and set the phone down. They didn't answer right away. That was new. For years, silence had only flowed one direction. On board, life continued gently. I volunteered one afternoon to read to passengers who had trouble with their eyesight. I joined a small group that met to write letters, real ones, with paper and ink. I learned which deck caught the sunrise best. Each small choice reinforced the same lesson. Belonging doesn't have to be negotiated. 2 days later, a message arrived from my daughter. Just one sentence. I didn't realize we were already planning your ending. I stared at it for a long time, not because it fixed anything, because it finally named it. I typed back carefully. Now you know. What you do with that is up to you. That was all. That evening, the ship hosted a talk about long-term travel, how people choose movement as a way of living, not escaping. The speaker said something that stayed with me. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse the role written for you. I smiled. I realized then that the balance had shifted. Not in my favor, out of their reach. They could grieve the version of me they planned around. They could adjust, or they could hold on to resentment. None of that required my participation. As the ship sailed into open water again, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not relief, ownership. I used to think endings were loud. Arguments, doors closing, people choosing sides. I was wrong. The truest endings are quiet. They arrive when you stop explaining yourself. I stood on the deck early that morning, wrapped in a light jacket, watching the sea stretch out in every direction. No borders, no markers, just movement. This was what legacy looked like to me now. Not houses, not accounts, not things divided in rooms after someone is gone. Choice. My children didn't call again, not right away. They were adjusting to a story that no longer had them at the center. I didn't chase them. Love doesn't beg to be included in plans for its own disappearance. Weeks passed. Ports blurred into memories. Faces became familiar. My cabin felt like home. I learned the names of the crew who greeted me every morning. I learned which evenings the ocean was calmest. I learned that my body, which everyone had treated like a countdown, was stronger than fear. No one here waited for me to fade. One afternoon, I received a final letter from the foundation. Photos of the first families moving into temporary housing. A note from a woman who had slept in her car for 2 years and now had a door that locked from the inside. She wrote, "You didn't know me, but you gave me time." I closed my eyes and breathed. That was enough. People sometimes ask, kindly, carefully, if I regret leaving, if I miss my family. I tell them the truth. I didn't leave because I stopped loving them, I say. I left because they stopped seeing me alive. Legacy is not what people inherit after you're gone. It's what exists because you were here. A door that opens, a bed that's warm, a future that wasn't rehearsed around someone else's ending. I was never dying. I was waiting to choose a life where no one practiced my absence like a schedule. So I sold what they were counting. I left what they were dividing. And I lived somewhere that moved every day. A ship sailed on. So did I. And somewhere behind me, a plan fell apart. Not because I fought it, but because I refused to stay still long enough for it to finish.